All right, 7th graders, this is Mr. Macaluso here with a video on Unit 3, Lesson 2, River Valley Civilizations, the Beginnings of a New Era. As you can see here from the slide, we're going to be studying the Tigris and the Euphrates, the Nile, the Indus River, and the Yellow River Valley civilizations. What you're going to want to do at this time is you're going to want to have note-taking tools out, be it on paper or on an app on your iPad. I know some of you use notes, some of you use Evernote, some of you have a notebook, but please go ahead and add to your a new note after your 3.1 lesson, and here we go. So go ahead and pause the video if we need to go ahead and get those ready. So for this lesson here, you're going to want to have a turn and talk partner. That could be your table partner most likely here, but we're going to make sure you're partnered up with somebody. We're going to start here first by just looking at the timeline here on the screen. You can see the title is The Emergence of Early River Valley Civilizations. We can see that on the left-hand side, right up here, we're starting at 4000 BCE, before the Common Era, and then it goes all the way up to 1000 BCE. And as you can see here, we have our four river valley civilizations, Mesopotamia, along in between the Tigris and the Euphrates River. In present-day Iraq here is the earliest known civilization. We've talked about that a lot, that this is going to be coming, and Mesopotamia does indeed develop first, followed by ancient Egypt on the Nile River Valley, and then the Indus River Valley in India in 2600 BCE, and followed by China at the Yellow River Valley in 1700 BCE. So let's go ahead and take a look at the turn and talk questions. So I'm going to read these to you, and then you are going to pause the video and go ahead and have that conversation just real briefly. So for the first question is, by what time in Era 2 were all four river valley civilizations in existence? So you're going to use your timeline skills up here and see at what point are all four there. And then the second question, what do you think is going on in each of these places before the civilization developed? So we're talking about this period right here before each of them. For example, do you think that there were people living in the Indus River Valley in 3000 BCE? So we can see the Indus River Valley starts here, but right about here, are there people living in there? And why or why not? And if so, why wasn't it considered a civilization yet? So think about those things as you turn and talk to your partner. So go ahead and pause the video now, and let's just take 1.5 to 2 minutes to have that conversation. Okay, we're back, and hopefully you guys were able to figure out on the first one here that it wasn't until 1700 BCE that you had all four river valley civilizations in existence. And then as we talk about and think about this period before we consider these civilizations, you know, how do we think people were living there? And I think we all realize there were people there. We've talked about how the fact that for 200,000 years we were we were foraging, and then we quickly moved into the Neolithic Revolution, started farming, and there were people there. They just weren't considered a civilization. So what are the characteristics of things that would make it a civilization that they didn't have yet? Well, we know about those monument building projects, writing systems, a surplus of food that leads to the development of a division of labor, which then leads into social institutions to deal with new problems. And again, that cycle goes on and repeats, and you have the creation of civilizations as you start to create government systems, social hierarchies, and so on. So yes, there were people living in these prior, especially Indus River Valley and all these, in the white areas before they were considered a civilization. So let's go on to slide 3 now. So the title of this, why 4000 BCE? I mean, we know that farming in one form or another had been around for between 5,000 and 6,000 years. So why did civilization develop in 4000 BCE, give or take a couple of centuries? As you know, we're basing this on a study of prehistory. And so the question is, how does this feedback loop help answer the question above? So you're going to want to think about this as I go through it here. So it's a feedback loop, so the thing keeps going around and around and around. We can start really anywhere, but if we take a look at more production and more resources, we know that as civilizations, early farming civilizations start to develop, we think of like Banpo and Chilka and Jericho and things, and civilizations and small, settlements like that. We know that over a long periods of time, it took a long time for a critical mass to develop. And what I mean by that is it just took a long time for you to develop enough production from the land to get more surpluses, to develop more resources to deal with that. And over time, that gives you more people in your community, in your society, which again, we know is more problems. So you develop social institutions, you get creative, use technology to solve those things, which then will increase your production and more resources. So over time, you get this wheel start spinning, and it took a long time for this thing. And you can imagine a critical mass means as it gets heavier and heavier, this thing's going to spin faster and faster. And all of a sudden, it came to a point where a lot of different settlements were like, all right, we need to be in a place where we can grow enough food for our people, a river system where we can grow enough people, where we can have a transportation network on this river system that will be successful for us. Where we can start to develop and build cities where we can trade and so on. And in turn, those lead to more complex social hierarchies, the development of laws, and the creation of government systems. And so that loop, took a while for it to start spinning fast, but after it got spinning, it went really, really fast, and you get into the first civilization. So on to lesson. If you need to pause, go ahead and take notes on that, or re-listen to it, but let's go on to slide 4 now. So here we are, a flashback. What do you notice about the latitude of these civilizations, and why does this matter? Now, we've already talked about this. We know that between 20 degrees north and 40 degrees north, you have this critical, sweet spot in the global climate where you have these civilizations develop. You have warm enough climates where you have good soil. You're able to have big, large-seeded grasses, large domesticated animals, and those factors come together to give you the perfect situation right here in this latitude band. Let's go on to slide 5 here and also consider geography again. So this is actually in page 60 and 61 in the yellow edged green ancient civilization books on the counter. So if you guys want to get this out, you can on page 60 and 61. And just kind of zoom in here. Let's see if I can zoom in. I want you to let's take a quick look at these different captions here. So we've got from village to city, with the development of agriculture, people settled into farming villages. Over time, some of these villages grew into large cities. Then here you have some in Egypt. Okay, so we have that development from village to city, like the ones we studied previously with Banpo and Chilka and others. Rivers. River travel allowed for early civilization to trade goods and ideas. These people, you can see, are traveling on the Euphrates, one of the Mesopotamian rivers, so rivers become new important. You have new activities that develop. Again, social institutions, food surpluses allowing people to pursue other activities like crafts, art, and writing here in the Indus River Valley. Excuse me, I'm trying to zip over there. That's as far as I can go, it looks like. And then you have the gift of the Nile River. Oops, if I can zoom this in right. River water was key to farming in early civilizations, and here you can't really see it. I'm not sure I can zoom over there, but I'll zoom back here. You see an ancient, or a farmer using water from the Huanghe or the Yellow River in China, which would have been done in ancient times as well here. So let me back up here to where we are on the slide. And so I want you guys to stop the video now and jot down in your notes why rivers. Why are rivers so important here, and why these rivers in particular do you think? So go ahead and take just a minute or so to jot down in your notes that answer, why rivers and why these rivers. On to slide 6 here, we see the 4 river valleys, the 4 rivers, just some photos of each, and I want you guys to look at these together with your Turn and Talk partner. List the similarities you see, so go ahead and make a chart and list all the things that you see that are similar. Why do the similarities matter? And think about the things that are similar to them and why they might matter. And why do civilizations develop around rivers, not lakes? And what is special about rivers that lakes do not give us? So go ahead and pause the video now and take a moment to list the similarities, and then we'll be back to discuss those. All right, we're back here. Hopefully you guys found some similarities here. Obviously, you've got winding rivers in each. They provide, you may have noted that transportation networks here were available on all these. What about some flat land? All the flat land that you can see available for planting here in each one. Hopefully you might have noticed the mountains in the background. You may have not, but mountains were really important here because what you would get is a steady streams of water coming out of the mountains into the valley area below. So that was really important. brought water, and not only that, but fertile soil or silt from the mountains, and which replenished the soil. And rivers are really important because of the flooding that happens over the course of the year. At certain times the river gets low, and other times when it's the wet season, the rivers would flood. And so what happens is as the water spills over onto, floods a bit and comes up, it would replenish the soil here and give the ancient peoples and even peoples of today new nutrient-rich nutrients that are coming in off the mountains. So that was really important here, and that's why rivers are so special. So we've been looking at on the previous slides in terms of why civilizations were located where they were, but now let's look more closely at where they were. On this map here, you can see this little area is blown up on this map here. I want you guys to point out here on the map skills, find the Mediterranean, Black, and Caspian Seas on the map of this Fertile Crescent. So hopefully you guys are able to find them on this small one here. You have the Mediterranean, the Black, and the Caspian. And then can you find them on the larger map now? All right, so here's your Mediterranean here. Here's your Black Sea here. And here's your Caspian Sea over here. To give you an idea of where we are. So now let's look at this map here. And we can see here we have the Mediterranean here. Here we have the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. You can kind of, again, remember where we're at here. And what I want to point out here is, anyone know what talk to your partner perhaps about if you know what a crescent shape is. And do you guys have any idea? Think about a crescent moon, if that might help you. And the crescent shape is this shape here. So if you go, you see where my arrow is, if you follow that along, this is a crescent shape. If you imagine tilting this 90 degrees, you have a crescent moon in the sky when we have that phase. So important to note that is a crescent shape, and that's why it's called the Fertile Crescent area in here. And also what's really important is remember geographic luck from our last lesson, and look at what you have here. You have, not only do we have these fertile two rivers here, but look at the domesticated animals available right here, and then wheat that's available in this blue blob right here. So you have everything that you need here to be geographically lucky for a civilization, and this is why you have the development of civilization here first. All right, we're moved on to slide 9 here. Can you guys find Catalhuyuk and Jericho, two of the sites that we have already studied? So go ahead and pause it real quick just to see if you guys can find where those are at. And hopefully you guys were able to find out that Catalhuyuk is right here. And then you have Jericho right here. Which of these two is in the Fertile Crescent? Jericho is right here. So here's the Fertile Crescent. So you can see that was in this zone, this geographically lucky zone here for the civilization. And take a note of other places that you might have heard of on this map. Perhaps you've heard of Jerusalem on here, and there may have been others that you've heard of as well. And I just want to point out again, we use these terms a lot, but you have the Euphrates River here and the Tigris River here. This is often called the Tigris and the Euphrates Valley right here. But also this is known as the Fertile Crescent because of its ability to grow crops and develop a civilization. Yet we also have the term Mesopotamia to refer to the land between the rivers. So we have all these different names, but all referring to generally this same place right here. All right, on to slide 10 in your notes. I want you guys to go ahead and take a look again with your Turn and Talk partner at this map. And in your notes, I want you to go ahead and talk through and write down the notes. These questions here, this first 4, we'll start on that. What kind of picture do you think this is? What is this that we're looking at? What clues can you use? What does it show? And what do you think the green and yellow areas are? So go ahead and pause the video here so you can see the questions here, and we'll come back and go through those answers real quick. All right, so hopefully you guys were able to figure out the kind of picture it is a satellite image, okay? Something that might have given it away is this word NASA sitting right here. In the green and yellow areas, the yellow is the desert region, the green is more vegetation in here. That's going to take me to the end of this video. I'm only able to do a 15-minute video, so we're going to have to go ahead on to part 2. So thanks a lot, guys, and Keep taking those notes, and we'll see you in part 2 of Lesson 3.2.